blood moon hung swollen above the cliffs of Blackwater Reach, staining the sea a venomous crimson. Waves gnawed at the rocks in a rhythm older than prayer, while on a half-ruined stone dais, Nyara the Veil Singer stood barefoot in pooled moonlight with an infant pressed to her breast. Nyara slept, unaware that tonight her mother would set eternity clawing at her tiny lungs. Renara's throat ached from 3 days of silence, fasting her voice, sharpening the blade of every note she was about to loose. One error, one quaver, and the song would flay them both. She glanced toward the tree line. Silver Dominion lampposts were weaving through the pines, soldiers' footfalls hissing like sand. Time was a candle guttering low. She began. A single tone, low and resonant, pealed across the water. The air quivered. Sigils etched in sea salt around the dais guttered with blue flame, then fused into a halo. Nyara stirred, dreaming of milk and warmth. The shard of Veritas, a sliver of living starlight, rose from a crystal bowl beside them, humming in sympathetic pitch. Nyara shifted to the second verse, the forbidden interval called the lunar cleft. The veil between worlds thinned like breath on glass, her voice fractured into harmonics that were not entirely her own. Somewhere, distant choirs of light answered. "Child of dusk and dawn," she sang, "bear the truth no crown can bind." She drew a slim obsidian knife, sliced her palm, and pressed it to Nyara's tiny sternum. Blood met moonlight. The shard liquefied and poured into the infant's lungs in a glowing torrent. Nyara gasped, eyes snapping metallic silver, then wailed, the sound impossibly pure. The sigils flared white, boots crashed through brush, crossbows clicked. Ranara gathered her daughter, tears streaking her cheeks. She sang one final, impossible chord, part sorrow, part promise. Reality folded like silk. Mist spiraled upward, swallowing mother and child just as Dominion bolts slashed the air. When the fog dissolved, the dais stood empty save for a single black feather and the echo of a lullaby that made the soldiers' torches flicker and fear take root in their hearts.
23 years later, sirens howled Nyara awake before dawn, their unmusical shriek ricocheting off the iron rafters of Sector Forge 17. She sat up on her straw pallet, the taste of rust thick on her tongue. Another day to feed the Dominion war machine, another day to remember never to sing. Cold light spilled through barred skylights, gilding rows of captive workers already shuffling toward the showers. Nyara joined them, tucking loose coils of storm-dark hair beneath her kerchief. As she queued for ration broth, the ink brand on her wrist pulsed, detecting the shard of magic she carried. A polite reminder from her masters. We own your silence. Outside, Erenmere's streets were a labyrinth of razor wire and checkpoint arches. Rune gates read every heartbeat that passed beneath. Nyara's squad marched single file beneath one such arch. The runestones throbbed, tasting for illicit resonance. Her brand warmed, an iron kiss warning her not to hum, not even under her breath. In the forge yard, overseers chained each laborer to a workbench. Nyara's station produced null steel collars, instruments designed to throttle sorcerers before spells could bloom. Sparks flew, stinging her forearms. She mouthed the counting rhyme that kept her rhythm steady. 1 spark, 2 sparks, don't you dare sing. 3 sparks, 4 sparks, Crown owns everything. Mid-shift, Dominion loudspeakers crackled to life. Citizens froze, hammers mid-swing, bellows half-drawn.
By decree of the Holy Crown,
The voice intoned.
The traitor Nyara, the so-called Veil Singer, shall be executed at dusk in the Square of Penance. Attendance mandatory. Silence required.
Nyara's hammer slipped. Metal rang off stone. Somewhere inside her chest, something ancient stirred, remembering moonlight and a song she had never consciously heard. Her bunkmate, Sarah, hissed,
Eyes down, hands moving, or they'll dock our sleep rations.
Nyara nodded, forcing breath through tight lungs. But the forge felt smaller now, the air a vice around her ribs. Ranara. The name rolled through her skull like thunder on a dry plain. She had no proof, only half-burned memories of salt and lullaby. But every fiber of her being insisted the executed woman would be her mother. And if the Dominion was about to slay the last person who'd ever truly known her, then the silence they demanded might finally break. That night, when the shift whistle screamed and chains were uncoupled, Nyara did not shuffle toward the dormitory like the others. She slipped into the crowd flowing toward Penance Square, heart pounding to the rhythm of hammers. Above the rooftops, a crimson dusk settled, eerily reminiscent of the blood moon in stories the Dominion forbade.
Nyara felt the ink brand throb harder. Somewhere beyond the barricades, a scaffold waited, torches hissing. She exhaled, tasting iron and smoke, and for the first time in years, let the faintest thread of melody form on her tongue. It was no louder than a breath, yet the air around her seemed to pause, listening. Don't, Reason begged. Sing, something older replied. Nyara stepped forward into the gathering dark, unaware that before the night bled out, her voice would tear a hole through worlds, and nothing, not even silence, would ever hold her again. Chapter 2. Dusk Will Bleed.
Nyara stood among a sea of silent bodies as dusk bled over Erenmere, bruising the sky a shade too close to dried blood. The crowd surged without sound, packed shoulder to shoulder in Penance Square, hemmed in by razor-wire barricades and hovering surveillance orbs. Dominion soldiers ringed the scaffold like iron statues, rifles at rest, eyes scanning for flickers of rebellion. Above them, the execution platform waited, clean, orderly, elevated like a sermon stage. Rune torches spat cold green fire, their flames flickering in patterns that warded against magic. Even the air felt pressurized, like breath held by the entire city. Nyara tugged her shawl tighter around her neck. Beneath it, her ink brand pulsed faintly, reacting to the mounting tension in her blood.
She's late,
someone murmured to her left, a man with sunburned cheeks and broken fingernails.
She's dead already,
hissed another.
This is just for show.
Nyara said nothing. She stared at the platform, waiting for the woman they claimed was Ranara, her mother. The thought alone made her skin crawl. The last time she'd heard that name spoken aloud, it was followed by the word traitor and 3 days in solitary. No one in the work sectors dared whisper it now. But Nyara had heard that name in her dreams, sung like a question through fog. And now the dreams had cracked open like a blister. A hush fell as the warden of penance took the dais. His robes were polished obsidian, his face unreadable under the Dominion's angular gold mask.
Citizens of Erenmere,
he began, voice projected through the floating runes.
By the grace of the crown, we dispense justice.
2 guards emerged from the barracks behind the stage, dragging between them a woman in a torn hood and restraints. Nyara's breath caught.
The woman's frame was slender, posture hunched, as if something had been ripped from her. Not her body, but her soul. Her feet scraped against the platform, leaving dark smears. The hood obscured her features, but Nyara saw it, the curve of the jaw, the silver-streaked hair matted with sweat. It can't be her. It can't be her.
but it might be.
Nyara, the Veilsinger,
The warden declared.
convicted of heresy, sedition, and terror. For crimes against order, she is sentenced to death by hanging.
The words rang across the square like metal on stone. Guards raised the gallows. A drone whirred into position overhead, broadcasting the execution across the district. The crowd did not cheer. No one wept.
That was Dominion genius, breaking people so thoroughly that even outrage was rationed. The guards moved to remove the woman's hood. Nyara felt her knees tremble. She didn't know why. She couldn't know. But every instinct in her screamed, "That is her!" The hood came off. A woman's face, bloodied, bruised, eyes half-lidded. Familiar and not. Was it her mother? Was it a Dominion illusion? Nyara didn't realize her hand had risen to her throat until she felt it, a shivering hum beneath her skin. Her voice stirred. Not words, not music, just tone, like pressure swelling in a cracked bottle. The noose was fitted. The guard stepped back. The warden nodded, and something inside Nyara snapped.
It wasn't a scream. It wasn't even intentional. It was a note, so raw it bypassed language and memory, a thread of sound threaded through clenched teeth, tight lungs, and the shard of Veritas buried deep in her chest. It escaped her lips like steam from a volcano. The rune torches flared, then popped. The overhead drone glitched, spinning wild for a moment before crashing into the scaffold in a spray of sparks. Somewhere to the east, a dog barked and then howled. Nyara slapped both hands over her mouth. The crowd had already turned. Someone shouted, "There!" The first rifle raised. "Citizen on the edge! Gray shawl!" Panic rippled. Nyara turned and ran.
The crowd surged like water. She darted between shoulders, knees, boots, veering left down a side alley, heart thundering. Behind her, Dominion shock troopers shouted orders. "Sector 7, North Gate, lock perimeter!" Nyara skidded past a bakery shutter, her shoulder slamming into rusted bins. A stun bolt sizzled past her temple. Too close. She vaulted a railing, dropped into a drainage trench, knees buckling. Her palm caught a jagged bolt, drawing blood. The wound didn't register. Move. She slipped into a sewage conduit lit by flickering emergency strips. The air reeked of ozone and fear. At the next fork, a maintenance panel hung ajar. Nyara dove through it, shoulders scraping. Beyond, darkness, and a ladder that descended endlessly. Somewhere above, another alarm joined the chorus.
473-C is loose. Possible Veil song breach. Containment level 5.
Her ink brand pulsed hot. At the bottom of the ladder, the floor gave way to mist. Not steam, not fog. Mist that shimmered. Not with heat, but wrongness. Nyara's voice rose again, instinctively. An involuntary breath. A whisper too clear for a whisper. The mist thickened. And then she fell. Not down, sideways, through the veil.